In this video, we're going to be looking at completing the square. Okay, so in order to complete the square, first you need a quadratic that's written in standard form. Standard form of a quadratic is y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so your first step in completing the square is that if there's a number other than 1 in front of your x squared term, in other words, if your a is not equal to 1, then you have to divide everything by a. Okay, but in our first example, we do not have a number in front of x squared. Now we are going to do a couple examples with a number in front, but this doesn't have one. Okay, so we can skip that first step. We don't have to divide everything by that number in front because we'd just be dividing by 1. Okay, the second step on this problem is that we need to get the constant, the c term, to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 28 from both sides, which will give me y minus 28 is equal to x squared minus 10x. Okay, now I'm going to do the process of completing the square, which means I need to take this middle term here, this negative 10, and I need to divide it by 2 and square it. So you'll take the b term, you'll divide it by 2, and you'll square it. So negative 10 divided by 2 squared, which negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5, and negative 5 squared is 25. Okay, so I'm going to take that 25 and I'm going to add it to both sides. So I'm going to add a 25 over here and I'm going to add a 25 over here. The reason I have to add it to both sides is because this is an equation. The equations have to be equal. You can't just add something to one side and say that they're equal. You have to add it to both sides. Okay, so let's see, negative 28 and 25, that makes a negative 3. So y minus 3 is equal to x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, so here's a trick, and we're going to factor this regularly, but I want to show you this trick first. This number inside here, this negative 5, before it got squared, this whole thing right here is now going to factor to x in this number. So in other words, if I factor this in a second, it's going to turn out to be x minus 5 squared. Now let's prove that. So in order to factor this, we need two numbers that multiply to get 25, that add to get negative 10. Now we could use 5 and 5, but 5 plus 5 is positive 10, not negative. So we need a negative 5 and a negative 5, right? Okay, so that means this thing factors into, let me write this left side real quick, factors into x minus 5, which is actually x minus 5 squared. So that little shortcut works. So just remember that for future examples. Not after you square it. It's not this number. It's the one right before you square that inside. So we took the negative 10 over 2 and we got a negative 5. And before we squared it, this number right here is what's always going to go right here with the x. Okay. Now let's finish up this problem. We're almost done. We add this 3 to the other side so we can get it back in terms of y. And that becomes y is equal to x minus 5 squared plus 3. Okay. And if you want to confirm that you did it right, all you have to do is square this thing out and then add the 3 and see if you got it right. So let's do that really quick, just on this one example. Okay, so x minus 5 squared is the same as x minus 5, and then plus 3. X times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. And here's my plus 3. So x squared, combine these two, you get negative 10x. Combine these two, you get 28. Okay, so that's the exact problem that we started with. So we know that we completed the square properly. Another benefit of completing the square is that this gives you your vertex. Okay, so if you're looking for your vertex, then your vertex in vertex form is going to be x minus h squared plus k. Okay, where h comma k is equal to the vertex of a parabola. Okay, so if you're looking for the vertex and you get it into this form, then you will, which is called vertex form, then you will know what your vertex is. If this is a minus sign, then it's just this number and this number. If this is a plus sign, you got to change the sign. So we get 5 comma 3 because the minus sign was already in the equation. So it's just the 5 part and the 3 part. Okay. Let's do one more without an a out front, and then I'll do a couple with the a in front. This one I'm going to go a little faster. on. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the number in front of x squared. It's not a 1. I mean, it is a 1, so we don't have to divide it. So subtract the 6 from both sides, and I get y minus 6 equals x squared plus 4x. Okay, now I take that number, that 4, and divide by 2, and I square it, which gives me 2 squared, which gives me 4. Okay, so I add 4 to both sides, plus 4 and plus 4, and I will get y minus 2 is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay, and we know what this is going to factor into using that trick I showed you earlier. We know that we're going to get x and then a positive 2 squared. Okay, but one more time, I'm going to show you that it actually works. So two numbers that multiply to get 4, but add to get 4 as well, that's 2 and 2, right? So you'd end up getting x plus 2 times x plus 2, which is x plus 2 squared. And you still have that y minus 2. And we can bring that 2 over, and we've added it to both sides. And we have the equation written in vertex form by completing the square. Okay, and your vertex on this one, if you're looking for your vertex, is, you remember it's of the form x minus h plus k, but this isn't a minus. So the only way to change that as a minus is to write it like this, x minus a negative 2 squared plus 2. And that makes it where the inside thing is minus, like the formula, which means your h is negative 2 and your k is 2. Negative 2, 2. Okay? Okay, on this one, we are going to have an a out front that is not equal to 1. Okay, so this, we have to add an extra step on this. I can either divide everything by 2 now or move the 11 over and then divide. It doesn't matter. Let's just go ahead and divide that to get it out of the way, because I know I'm going to have to. Okay, so I divide every term by 2. That gives me y over 2 is equal to, let's see, that cancels and gives you x squared. This will give you 4x, and that's just 11 over 2. Okay, now we've got just a 1 in front of x squared, so we can do what we did on the last example. So I'll subtract an 11 over 2 from both sides. Notice that they have a common denominator over here on the left. They're both dividing by 2. So I can go ahead and just write y minus 11 over 1 common 2, instead of writing it as two different fractions, equals x squared plus 4x. Okay, so I take that middle number, that 4, and I divide it by 2 and I square it, which is 2 squared, which is 4. And I'm going to add that 4 to both sides. Okay, but using the trick, I know that it's going to factor into x plus 2 squared. So I'll just use that trick. So I have y minus 11 over 2 plus 4 equals x plus 2 squared. Okay, so now I need to move the 4 back over by subtraction. So I'll do that. And that gives me y minus 11 over 2 is equal to x plus 2 squared minus 4. Then I'm going to get rid of this 2 on bottom, so I'll multiply by 2 on everything. So multiply both of these terms by 2. I distribute here and here, which will give me y minus 11 equals, let's see, the 2 goes here, so 2 times x plus 2 squared. And the 2 goes here, making negative 8. One more step, I just need to move that 11 over so I can get y by itself. And my final answer in vertex form is y is equal to 2 times x plus 2 squared. And then what's this? 11 minus 8 is 3. Okay, so there you are in vertex form, and your vertex of this would be negative 2, 3. It's negative 2 because the sign is not the same as the formula, so you have to change the sign of this. Okay, let's do one more because this one has a negative leading coefficient. Okay, so I'm going to divide everything by negative 3. Okay, so that will give me y over negative 3 is equal to x squared, because the negative 3 is canceled. Let's see, that'll be negative 6x, because 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. And then negative 22 over negative 3, well, it becomes positive, but it can't be reduced, so 22 over 3. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and subtract that 22 over 3 over here, minus 22 over 3. Okay, and that will be negative y over 3 minus 22 over 3 equals x squared minus 6x. Okay, we could combine these as one fraction if you want. That's fine. You don't have to, though. It's either way. So I'll leave it alone. We're going to look at this negative 6, and I'm going to divide it by 2 and square it. That's the completing the square process, which is negative 3 squared, which is 9. So I'm going to add a 9 to both sides. Okay, so that'll give me a negative y over, well, let's just go ahead and combine those two. Negative y minus 22 over 3 plus 9 equals, what does this turn into factored? It'll turn into x minus this number, or x plus this number, actually. So x minus 3. So x minus 3 squared. Okay. And then we can move the 9 over by subtracting. Okay, so that gives me negative y minus 22 over 3 is equal to x minus 3 squared minus 9. And then I can divide, or not divide, multiply everything by 3, because it'll cancel right there. So times 3 and times 3. That will give me negative y minus 22 equals 3 times x minus 3 squared minus 27. And I have a couple more steps. I need to add 22 to both sides. Let me go over here because I'm out of room. Okay, so that will be negative y, because this term cancels, and we'll get equals 3 times x minus 3 squared. And let's see, what is this? The negative's bigger, so negative 5 minus 5. And then my last step is to change this from a negative to a positive. We can do that by dividing or multiplying by negative 1, either way. So the sign changes to positive y equals negative 3 times x minus 3 squared plus 5. Our vertex, if you're looking for that, is equal to negative 3, 5.